Hello, Mensa. Nice to see you all. In a manner of speaking, of course, I'm not there in person. My eyeballs aren't literally there. These are pre-recorded eyeballs that are looking at you. Uh, Hope everyone's doing well. Right now, I'm unfortunately teaching English if you're watching this on a Sunday morning. But it is good to be with you in some way, shape, or form. So today we are going to be looking at the Israelites again. Some of you guys might remember that I did a video way back last year, the I'm bored video that has like a million R's. Remember that one? I kind of discussed this topic a little bit, but before we jump into the topic, I would like to use my shopping journey, which seems completely out of left field, but is a very great introduction to today's lesson. So at the beginning of last year, I decided to cancel all shopping. I was not going to go shopping because I was going to China. But then obviously that didn't happen. So I had built up this supply of stuff that I needed, or anti-supply of stuff that I needed to get. So I went out and did shopping. I actually got this very floral t-shirt that you are looking at. And I'm also wearing jeans that I bought. Got this hat, which is very cool. It's like an old Reebok hat. Well, kind of like an old style, but it's really nice. I like that too. And then practically I also got some new running shoes, which I'm quite thrilled about. My old running shoes were kind of, I don't know, not so great. So yeah, that is the sum total of my shopping spree. At the end of it, I was like, cool, okay, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. And then I started thinking, I was like, do I really need all this stuff? Was it really that important that I replaced my running shoes? I think it really is human nature to want more and to kind of want maybe more than you actually need. Recently, I did a poll on my YouTube channel and it kind of explores this idea again. And I asked this question, how many guitars is too many? And I gave some options. So the first option was 2 is too many. You only really need 1. The second option was 3 is too many. You only really need 1 and maybe a backup. 10, that's a good round number to stop at. And the last one, they're like Pokemon. You're not done until you catch them all. So most of the people selected the last option. 55% of the people selected that option. And it just shows you that everyone wants more. They want another guitar. They want another video game. They want more money. And it made me laugh because I think as a musician, I definitely resonate with that. I'm like, I always want another guitar. So back to that video that I did last year about the Israelites, we kind of covered this topic about the Israelites not being satisfied and having a really bad attitude. But just as a summary, if you guys didn't watch that video, basically what happened is the Israelites, God's chosen people, were out wandering the desert. For 40 years they were out there. And even though like they didn't have food or water, God provided in this incredible way for them. And it was really miraculous. But despite that, they had like a really, really bad attitude. So I'll remind you again, Exodus 16 verse 2 says this, and there in the desert, they grumbled against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, they said. There we sat by pots of meat and ate our fill of bread. But you have brought us into this desert to starve this whole assembly to death. So you can hear that they weren't even remotely near a place of trusting God. But still God came through miraculously. So let's spend a little bit of time in discussion. Again, you guys can discuss in your groups, or if you're at home, you can maybe just spend a little bit of time discussing with whoever's with you, or just thinking about these questions really, and then we'll do some feedback in a moment. Okay, I'm sure that you guys came up with some very interesting answers there. I'd like actually to immediately jump into one more question. So if we read Deuteronomy 8 verse 1 to 5 and then 10 to 16, Moses spends a little bit of time retroactively looking back at that whole sequence that played out in the desert, and he gives us some really insightful commentary of why God allowed that to happen. So maybe that's a great question for us to spend a little bit more time thinking about and discussing just for one more moment. Okay, so the question, why did God allow the Israelites to go through such a harsh experience? It's kind of a difficult one. And one of the things that came out in that passage that Moses speaks about is the idea that God allowed that to happen to teach the Israelites to trust, to be able to put their trust in the Lord. And this is such an important thing for us to remember as well, you know. Even though the Israelites lived way, way back in the day, we can still learn from the experiences that they had and the lessons that God taught them. So sometimes we make mistakes like the Israelites and we have to go through difficult times like the Israelites did. Sometimes it's through no fault of our own, but we still have to deal with challenges that are out of our control. Either way, learning to trust God is a critical part of living a meaningful life. All right, with that in mind, let's look at a couple more questions and then I'm going to close with some final thoughts. So spend a little bit of time discussing this and we'll do some feedback. I don't know why I'm waiting. I mean, I can just edit this out. I'm just enjoying my tea. Anyway, so there's this YouTuber that I absolutely adore. And he's got this hilarious video where he goes out and does like trust falls on random strangers. Basically what a trust fall is, if you don't know, is that if you just like lean back and then there's a person behind you, you have to trust that that person catches you. Sometimes it's like a group of people. They often do it on camps. We've actually done it on camps at the Methodist Church, if you've come to one of those. So they're really popular. But he goes up to strangers and it's just like, they just have to decide randomly where they're going to catch this dude falling, which is hysterical. But I was watching it the other day and I was thinking how interesting and insightful it is about our relationship with God. Because often the way that you build trust with someone is it's not just in one moment. It can be in one moment, but often it's something that's kind of repeated. So for example, if I had to, have someone who was a complete stranger stand behind me and I did 1,000 trust falls with that guy, by the end I would feel like, wow, I can really trust this person. I know that they're going to catch me. They're not going to let me down. And the same is true when someone doesn't catch you. You're like, whoa, I can't trust that person. And with our relationship with God, it really is like a daily thing. It doesn't just happen once. Although there can be big events that when you see the way that God comes through, you really can build a lot of trust and hope in the Lord. But really what it comes down to is being a daily discipline, something that we practice. And in the same way that you could see that the Israelites, their attitude wasn't so great. They needed to learn and be taught to build up that trust in the Lord, that God was going to provide for them. And in the same way, on a daily basis, you and I need to wake up and remember that we need to put our trust in God. We need to know that He is capable of providing for us. And how can we do that? Well, there are a lot of practical ways to do that. For me personally, something that I take very seriously is in the morning when I wake up, the very first thing I do is I open the scriptures and I spend time with the Lord. I put some worship music on. It doesn't always turn into some like hour-long praise and worship fest. Often it'll just be for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Sometimes it's more, but it's for me a really important way to start the day. And that is the way that I entrust God with whatever plans I have. I also do this thing where I have my diary. So usually I do that after I've done my devotion. I will go through and plan out the things that I need to do in the day. And while that's happening, I've got worship music playing, and then I just commit whatever I've planned to God. And I mean, I don't do necessarily hyper spiritual stuff. I'm planning English teaching. I'm planning what videos I'm going to work on for my YouTube channel, what content I need to put up, just practical things. But you don't have to be like some kind of holier than thou minister type person to put God first at the beginning of the day. Anyone can do it. And I want to encourage you that if you want to build up trust in the Lord, that is a really, really good way to start. And the second thing is being able to remember what God has already done by being in the scriptures and also journaling, being able to write down, wow, I prayed about this and God came through. That is something that I feel like I'm preaching to myself a bit because I don't do that enough. And perhaps that's something I need to work on. Anyway, guys, those are some closing thoughts. I really do hope that you are all doing well. I'd love to see you all soon. and keep it real. And I will see you definitely soon. Bye, everyone.